overall, I thought this was an interesting game, but at the same time, not a very exciting game. The flashiness that we thought to expect between these two, the close, tight knit scoring that we thought we were going to get, did not happen. Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 77 of Bando's Breakdowns. My name is Zain Bando. Hope you're doing well. Let's get a few particulars out of the way here. First, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. You can do so at youtube.com/EDB Network. And of course, you can follow the show across social media at Bando's Breakdown. Again, that's where all the reels, all the clips live, all that stuff. Had a bit of some technical glitches with the Twitter side, but we're going to clean that up this week, I promise. And of course, you can listen to Bando's Breakdowns wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's get into the show. But before we get into the show, I wanted to address something off the top of the program, and that's where Zain's overview comes in here. There was supposed to be a Bando's bonus video that went out the day after the Super Bowl, and unfortunately, that never went out. Unfortunately, we had some things come up, and I apologize for that. I promised you guys that would be done. It was done. It just never went out. We're going to be better about it moving forward, I promise. But just know, full transparency, that I didn't forget about it. It was there and readily available. It just never went up. So we're going to do better about that moving forward. But I just wanted to make that very clear off the top that it was not intentional for it not to go out. It's actually 6 minutes of some pretty good stuff just on the Super Bowl. Legion of Boom versus the Dark Side, stuff like that. All right, now getting back into the flow of the show, rather. Super Bowl 60 recap. The Seattle Seahawks defeated the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 60. The final score there, 29-13. Kenneth Walker becomes the first running back since Terrell Davis on the Denver Broncos to win the Super Bowl, or not just win the Super Bowl, win MVP rather, since the 1997-98 season. So congratulations to Terrell Davis on that front. It was a great effort by him, 100-plus yards. But just wanted to also shout out Jason Myers having a record Super Bowl with 5 successful field goals to win the Super Bowl over the New England Patriots, or at least give them a cushion to win the Super Bowl. So congratulations. Congratulations also goes out to the Seattle Seahawks winning their first Super Bowl title in 12 years. First time since they did so in New York against the Denver Broncos and Peyton Manning. So they did so against a team that's very familiar to the Peyton Manning-Tom Brady rivalry. Of course, Tom Brady played for the New England Patriots for a number of years through the early 2020s as well before moving on to Tampa Bay. So a lot of parallels there as well. But overall, I thought this was an interesting game, but at the same time, not a very exciting game. The flashiness that we thought to expect between these two, the close, tight-knit scoring that we thought we were going to get, did not happen. Drake May really struggled throwing the football. Turnovers galore on the side in New England. Sam Darnold, though, was really efficient. If Jackson Smith-Njigba does not get evaluated for a concussion, I think he is in the discussion for winning Super Bowl MVP. But overall, though, it was a great year, a great cap to the NFL season. Overall, can't be disappointed in that. And overall, I thought it was good. I thought it was overall a good season, a good Super Bowl holistically, and one of those where you just didn't know. You didn't know how to feel or what to think when the Super Bowl ended, because it was kind of a gross score, if you will, a score that no one really expected. 29-13 is not something you really expect off the top. But overall, though, I thought it was good, and I thought overall the end of the NFL season was extremely just a lot of parity involved, a lot of just unpredictability, especially with the Super Bowl matchup, it being one of the most unlikely Super Bowl matchups in NFL history. So I thought that was very interesting. And to address the halftime show, there's a lot of complaints about the halftime show and Bad Bunny and stuff like that. It is what it is. The NFL tried something different. They wanted to captivate a new audience. It didn't really work. I'm not so sure. What I can tell you is it seemed like it was of historical significance to Puerto Rico, even though I couldn't fully understand what Bad Bunny was saying because 95% of it was in Spanish, besides Lady Gaga's part. So just wanted to get that out of the way as well. But overall, that's a cap for the NFL season. We finished with, pretty sure it was 183 wins or something along those lines as well, out of the 285 games that were played. So that's not terrible. We finished our Bando's Blitz record, rather, 45-21 for the season. Football forecast, we were a little bit under 500. And in fact, I can tell you what my record would have been on football forecast if you include the Super Bowl. By the way, we went 7-6 this postseason for the Super Bowl as well. Let's take a look at the Super Bowl. Here we go. Here it is. All right. So yeah, I went 7-6 for the postseason, and in the regular season, we finished against the spread, rather, 128, 142, and 2 for the year as my individuality on that show. So speaking of that show, there is going to be a Super Bowl post modem, or there was one that we recently recorded. It should be coming out here soon, but it should be a fun NFL offseason, a lot to unpack, a lot to be excited about, and certainly one of those where you can't wait for the next one. There's 200 plus days until the next NFL season, and I made my prediction very clear on the latest edition of ETB Sports that I thought that Super Bowl 61 was going to feature Denver versus Seattle. I think it's a great matchup, so we'll see how that all transpires. But what I can tell you is this overall was a good year. Again, a lot of excitement, some new teams in the playoffs. My team made the postseason, so there's a lot to be interested in for 2026. A crazy offseason ahead. What's going to happen with a lot of these guys? Who the heck knows? But what I can tell you is it should be a really, really, really fun and exciting season next year, because there's going to be a lot of new developments. Obviously, we have the drafts coming up in April. There's going to be some decisions there. Fernando Mendoza looks like he's a lock to go to the Raiders. Clinton Kubiak was just hired as the new Raiders coach. So there's a lot of wheels in motion and a lot of stuff going on. But overall, I thought it was a good year, a decent Super Bowl at least, and a lot to be desired and a lot to work off of going into next season, and what's to come for the AFC and the NFC. So that's going to put a bow on the NFL for right now. We might talk about the NFL some more moving forward. We have the draft coming up soon, and we have some interviews coming up on this show very soon as well. I don't know what what some of those are going to entail. I know what the next one is going to be, which I'm not ready to publicly talk about yet, but I'm excited for that. It is football related, so looking forward to that. Another football related guest, so that'll be fun. And yeah, we're going to talk about the NFL as it moves along in this offseason and just all the stuff to look forward to as a whole in the league, and just so much movement. I think movement is going to be the key word. There's going to be some surprising trades and destinations and stuff like that. The major story was where Aaron Rodgers was going to go. He obviously went to Pittsburgh. I don't know what the major story is as of yet going into this offseason, but I'm sure it'll develop as time rolls on. So that will do it for the NFL, at least for right now. Let's move on to some other stuff, some stuff that is going to keep us occupied all the way until at least summer or post-summer. So UFC Vegas 113 was this past weekend. It was Mario Batista versus Mario Batista won in the main event. Obviously, that was a huge, huge win against a guy that a lot of people thought, Vinicius Oliveira, that is. It took me a second to recall that. I'm so sorry. But nonetheless, this was a fight that a lot of people thought was going to be very competitive, and unfortunately for Oliveira, it was not that. Batista dominated him in the main event, stating his case to remain in the mix in a crowded bantamweight division, in a division that I think is very top heavy. What is there with this? Let's see here. And yeah, and I just wanted to make sure my number cadence was correct because UFC Vegas 114 is going to be in March. The number cadence now on Paramount are confusing, but nonetheless, Mario Batista looked unbelievable in his first ever main event in the UFC against the guy in Vinicius Oliveira, who a lot of people had high expectations for. A lot of people thought was a guy on the rise, on the come up in the bantamweight division, a guy that a lot of people thought, okay, if he beats Mario Batista, that's a huge win, huge feather in his cap. And where does he go from here? And now Batista's in the mix where you don't really know what's going on with Sean O'Malley. You don't fully know what's going on with Marab. Is he going to fight Peter Yan next? That'll be interesting. And yeah, there's some other guys in that division where you just don't know as of yet what is going to happen with some of them. So I think Batista has put himself in an unbelievable position to sit back, wait, and see what happens with some of these guys, because I think the bantamweight division, until at least the White House event, is going to be on standby a little bit in terms of major contender matchups. So that's something to bear in mind. I went 10-3 on this card. We're now 24-13 through a couple of UFC events as well. And speaking of UFC events, we have a major UFC event coming up in March, but there was a major announcement on Tuesday that CBS and the UFC are teaming up to air a portion of UFC 326 on linear broadcast TV. So let me explain for those of you who don't even understand what I just said, what that exactly means. So what that means is 4 fights from UFC 326, the final 2 prelims and the first 2 main card fights, will air exclusively on regular CBS, which means regardless of where you live in the United States, you will be able to watch 4 of UFC 326's fights for free, no extra cost to you on your television on regular CBS. So if you have an over-the-air antenna, you can watch these 4 fights. If you have DirecTV, you can watch these 4 fights. If you have YouTube TV, you can watch these fights. Xfinity, etc., etc. You can watch these 4 fights live and free on CBS. Again, no extra cost, but it is going to be used as a driver to get people to Paramount Plus to watch the end of the card, which would be the final 3 main card fights, which we don't know what the co-main event is at the time that we're recording this, but what we do know is the main event is a BMF title fight between Max Holloway and Charles Oliveira, a rematch 11 years in the making for Holloway's BMF strap in Las Vegas on March 7th. So with that being said, I think this is big news, and I know it's not groundbreaking in a sense that this is what the UFC was supposed to do, going to Paramount, or whatever. But what it does represent is the UFC is catering to this new audience that they have, this new audience of streaming only, no pay-per-view, wanting to make the fights as accessible as possible. I'm sure this is a trial run, and I'm sure there were internal discussions of showcasing the whole card, but I'm also sure at the same time, CBS is probably busy with college basketball season to where they could only fit in a certain number of fights, or they have other shoulder programming that hasn't been announced yet that the UFC needs to adhere to. So with that said, this is the compromise more than likely that they came up with in order to make this happen. And I think this is awesome because now you're going to get new fans that are scrolling through the TV on Saturday night that have nothing else to watch because maybe all the college basketball games have concluded for the evening, and they're going to see, oh, what is this UFC thing? Or, oh, I've heard of this UFC thing because it's on Paramount Plus. And that's going to give people a lot of incentive to go, hey, let's check out these fights. And if I don't have Paramount Plus, let's go out and let's get it because it's exclusive and I won't have to pay any extra for the pay-per-view. So hopefully this becomes a thing. I don't know if this is only going to be for UFC 326 or just for landmark events, period. But what I can tell you is this is a big deal, big news for everybody involved. in and around the UFC. So congratulations to everyone who made this happen. I'm excited to watch this version of the broadcast, and I'm just excited to see how the UFC looks on terrestrial CBS. I can't speak that word or say that word, but nonetheless, you get my point. UFC broadcast TV, it's back. They've done Fox, they've done ABC. Now they're going to do CBS. Should be very interesting. Going away from fighting a little bit to talk about Big Ten men's basketball. It's the first time on this show, at least for this calendar year, that we've spoken about the Big Ten Conference when it comes to men's basketball. So there's a lot of parity going on right now. Illinois was ranked as high as number 5. It has since dropped to number 8. It has now lost 2 games in a row, both in overtime, one to Michigan State this past Saturday. And then, of course, on Tuesday night, it fell to Wisconsin at home in Champaign, 92-90. All right, so what does this mean for the Big Ten? So what this means is the Big Ten is very top heavy. Right now, it feels like it's a 5-team race. You've got Nebraska, Illinois, Michigan State, Michigan, and Purdue. Those are the 5 teams that people really have to worry about. And I know I said it out of order, and I know Michigan, at the time that we're recording this, is winning the league as we speak. But I think this goes to show that people are getting really excited for March Madness because there is so much parity in this league. And I've been using this term parity a lot on this episode because it's real. It's absolutely real. Purdue goes into Lincoln Tuesday night and wins on a puddle slippage, essentially. Wisconsin, who was kind of down and out a little bit a couple weeks ago, and has now won 3 out of its last 5 games, including Tuesday night's win against a depleted Illinois team that had no Andrei Stojakovic or Kylan Boswell. Boswell's been out for almost a month. Stojakovic had a sprained ankle. I don't know. What I can tell you is there's going to be a lot of games that are going to decide this league. Michigan State is for sure one of them. Michigan has the head-to-head right now over Michigan State. It went to East Lansing and beat them, right? So there's that. So that'll be exciting at the end of the year. Illinois obviously has wins on the road against Nebraska and Purdue. There's not too many teams that can say that that Illinois' quality of wins remotely stacks up to the Illini. But in that sense, though, you kind of look and go, okay, the next few weeks of the Big Ten schedule are going to be interesting because you have these games that are looming. You've got, Michigan still has to play Michigan State, as I just said. I think Michigan still has to play Purdue. Michigan still has to play Duke as well. Illinois, it's really they don't have another tough game until that Michigan game in a couple weeks, which means if you go 5-1 in your final 6 and your only loss is to Michigan, I think that's pretty good. I think it's a safe bet to say that you can get the 3 seed because if you look at the quality of wins that Illinois has had, you beat Tennessee. I know Tennessee is no longer ranked, but Tennessee was ranked at the time. Your best loss, quote unquote, is to UConn. UConn is an unbelievable team right now. Then you look at some of their best wins. I mean, Nebraska is a good win. Purdue's a good win. Obviously, as I just said, they have a couple of nice home wins. You go back to November when it beat Texas Tech. That's still a pretty good Texas Tech team, right? So, there's a lot to be excited about when it comes to the Big Ten and when it comes to just the overall landscape of the conference and what's to come from it. I don't know what else to say other than strap in, because strapping in the next month or so is the best thing you can do. If your team is still in the mix for a Big Ten conference title, you got to be excited because there's tons of games outside of just the head-to-heads to where, if you go in and you win some of these games, anything is possible. And you get to the beginning of March and you're staring down the barrel at the Big Ten tournament, it's going to get really interesting. So I'm excited to see what the next few weeks look like, and it should be really fun. All right, final couple of topics here with about 10 minutes to go before we get out of here. Zuffa Boxing 03 is this Sunday from the Meta Apex. Right now, so far, through 2 shows, we are 12-4 on Zuffa Boxing. Let's take a look at the main event because that's all we have time to preview at the moment. Let's take a look here. And by the way, just for clarity's sake, the next UFC event is not this Saturday, but next Saturday. All right. So it's a 7:30 Eastern start. We've got FA a Jagba versus Charles Martin, 20-1 versus 30-4 at heavyweight. Should be a good fight. My way too early pick on this fight is Martin. I just think he has too much experience, and I think Jagba is a good fighter. He's got some good knockout power, but for whatever reason, I just don't think the level of competition that Jagba has fought um, since within the last couple years, if you will, just does not stack up to the same level that maybe Martin does. So I like Martin in this fight, probably a late TKO. It's a 10-round fight, so round 5, round 6, or round 7 seems pretty doable in that regard. So give me Martin to get the stoppage win. And let's take a look at some of the other particulars for this card. It's an 8-fight card as per usual. Paramount Plus for the whole thing. Meta Apex, as usual. That's going to be like a theme now for the most part. Looking at some of these other fights. Umar Dasman Bekoff is fighting Albaye. That's 13-0 versus 24-1. Tony Woods is on this card. Emiliano Alvarado's on this card. So if you're a hardcore boxing fan, you should be excited for this card and you should tune in because some of these guys are bona fide prospects and it should be really fun to see how some of these fights play out. So that's Zuffa Boxing 03 in a nutshell. All right, one thing that I saw, North Dakota State looks like they're moving to the FBS. Congratulations. They're one of the best FCS teams in the country. They deserve all the praise in the world. They're one of the best, I guess you could call it. Well, they're going to be in the Mountain West. So I guess you could say one of the best group of 5 teams coming into the FBS in quite some time. I'm really excited to see how they fare and how this kind of all plays out because, college football has needed some new blood in the FBS for a while. And I'm excited to see just kind of where all that transpires moving forward as such, and just how excited North Dakota State alumni and fans should be that they're going to start playing some legitimate competition. I'm not saying they didn't previously, but they only did it a couple times a year, and now they're going to do it more often than not. So I'm excited to see how that kind of goes. And then Zain Zinger, it's a small one this week. More UFC off weekends are better. And I'm going to tell you why. February is prime college basketball. This year it's the Olympics as well. Prime college basketball, Olympics, beginning of spring training for baseball. There's a lot of other stuff on than just combat sports. And it also gives people some time to just relax, hang out, go out with their friends, do things that they wouldn't normally do if the UFC was on, if they have to watch it for their job or something. So I think the UFC is smart in taking an off weekend this weekend. They've just had 2 major pay-per-view events, or not pay-per-view, numbered events, pay-per-view everywhere else. So that's something to note. And number 2, you just don't need to stack so many cards in so many weekends. If you have an off weekend or 2, it's not going to kill anyone. So I love this move. I think it's very important. And I think they need to do this more often than not, because if they do this more often than not, it shows and tells the fans, hey, we care about you guys. We care about your bandwidth of how many cards you guys get, a year and a month and whatnot. And we're going to save the bigger fights for weekends where you can actually be dedicated to watching the UFC without any other distractions. And I think this is a great weekend to do so. There's tons of good college basketball on. I'm sure there's other stuff on, NBA and NHL, that I'm not thinking about as well. So a lot to be excited about moving forward. But it's nice to at least just take a breather, take it all in, relax, understand, what's going on and whatnot. And it's just good for other sports. It's good for other sports overall. And I'm happy to see that the UFC decided to do this weekend. All right. A few final reminders before we get out of here as well. Here we go. So be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. This is really important as we are slowly but surely approaching that 4,000 watch hour number. So if you guys can like, follow, and subscribe, hit the notification bell. That way you guys don't miss anything of Bando's breakdowns or anything that we have coming up on the Empty the Bench podcast network, it would be greatly appreciated if you guys did so as well. Of course, you can follow the show on social media at Bando's Breakdown, and you can follow me for those on the video only side as it's scrolling across the screen at ZanBando99. For those on the audio only side, though, please be sure to follow me at ZAINBANDO99. No caps or spaces there. And speaking of the audio only side, listen to Bando's Breakdowns wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Acast, and so much more. It would be greatly appreciated if you guys added me to your RSS feeds and left me a 5-star review. That way, if you like the content that you see and hear on a weekly basis every Friday afternoon, that I can keep it up as such on a weekly basis. All right, and then just a final reminder before we get out of here as well, and for those of you who've never seen me before, I'm Zain Bando, a sports journalist and an ETB Network co-host. You can check out all of my work across the network for this show, Bando's Breakdowns, ETB Sports with Nick Morgeson, Forever Power 5, during the college football season, as well as Football Forecast, where myself, Ben Cruz, Johnny Montalbano, Christy Wilson, Nick DiMartino, Grant Winsauer, Michael Rapolo, and the others break down everything there is to know in the world of the NFL every single week, where we pick every NFL game, including the postseason against the spread. So be sure to check that out and be sure to check out the archives of that show now that we are in the off season. And of course, if you want my written work, you can check it out several places. You can check it out over at the Sporting News. You can check it out over at Field Level Media. You can check it out over at Ohio State on Sports Illustrated, MMA Knockout on Sports Illustrated, Dallas Wings on Sports Illustrated, and many more syndicates from around the country and around the world, quite frankly. So that's going to do it, though, for another edition of Bando's Breakdowns for everybody here at the ETV Network. My name is Dan Bando. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of this show. This has been episode 77. We will see you guys right back here next week for episode 78 for more fun stuff, more off-season stuff, I'm sure, and especially more college basketball talk if the Big Ten can keep rolling in terms of momentum regarding way too early seeding for March Madness in about a month's time or so. But until next week, hope you all have a good one. Greatly appreciate all of you. And I will see you guys next week. Cheers, everyone. Thanks.